Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I need you to sit with this for a moment. Most marriages don't collapse overnight. They don't burn down in one explosion. They die quietly, slowly, piece by piece, like water dripping on stone until the shape is gone. And what I'm about to share with you is not theory. It's not something I read in a book or heard in a podcast. It's what I lived. I destroyed my own marriage with my own hands, and I didn't even see it happening until it was already ash. Maybe that's why this will hit you harder than anything you've ever heard, because I know the exact mistakes that turn love into resentment, intimacy into silence, and partnership into a prison. The first crack in a marriage doesn't look dangerous. It looks like harmless sarcasm. It looks like a little eye roll when she talks. It looks like forgetting to listen because you're busy scrolling. That's where I started. I didn't honor the man in front of me. I treated his love as if it would always be there no matter how carelessly I stepped on it. Men, if you think your woman doesn't notice when you stop really seeing her, you're wrong, and women notice everything. But here's the dark secret. Men do too. You notice when her smile feels forced, when she doesn't reach for your hand like she used to, when the kiss is mechanical. And what do most of you do? You bury it. You swallow it because you don't want to confront it. That's what I did. I thought ignoring problems was the same as solving them. But silence is a slow death. I killed my marriage by thinking love could survive without attention. I killed it by pretending routine was enough. And I promise you, if you're sitting there thinking this doesn't apply to you, that's exactly when you're in the most danger, because nobody wakes up planning to ruin the best thing they've ever had. It happens because you assume it'll never leave. But everything leaves when it's starved. Now, I'm going to open wounds here, not to hurt you, but to wake you. If you want to keep your marriage alive, if you want to avoid the exact hell I put myself through, you need to face truths that will feel uncomfortable, unfair, and raw. But that's the only way you can stop yourself from walking the same road I did. Let's get brutally honest. I didn't kill my marriage with drama. I didn't scream, throw things, or storm out. I killed it with indifference. That's what people don't realize. The slow erosion of love isn't sexy. It isn't explosive. It's invisible until it's too late. Men, hear me. A woman can feel your absence even when you're physically in the room. She can feel the way your mind drifts elsewhere, the way your heart isn't fully present, the way your patience thins and your attention wanders. That absence speaks louder than any argument. And I was absent, every day, for years, without realizing it. I stopped celebrating him. I stopped noticing the small victories, the quiet efforts, the moments he tried to be seen. And when I didn't celebrate him, I started resenting him. It's a vicious cycle. Neglect builds resentment. Resentment builds distance. And distance builds a wall neither of you can climb. And here's the kicker, men. Women will try to communicate the cracks in your foundation before they collapse. She might drop hints, sigh, or even confront you gently. But if you're not listening, it looks like nagging, like criticism, like overreaction. I ignored every warning sign, and like a fool, I blamed him for my own dissatisfaction. The real killer of marriage isn't betrayal, or secrets, or lies. It's thoughtlessness. It's the failure to actively choose each other every single day. It's taking the person who loves you for granted. I forgot that love is not a static thing. It's a living, breathing exchange. And when one person stops feeding it, the other slowly starves. I killed my marriage by assuming love was infinite, permanent, immune to neglect. Men, if you're listening, let me make this clear. No love survives in a vacuum. You have to nurture it, defend it, and fiercely guard it, even when life feels too heavy or your ego says it's someone else's responsibility. And here's what's hardest to swallow. Sometimes, even when you try to fix it, the damage has already gone too deep. I tried to patch things after years of neglect, But the cracks were already deep. The trust, the intimacy, the quiet connection. Once they're gone, they don't come back the same way. You can rebuild, but it will never feel untouched, innocent, effortless again. I wish I had seen it sooner. I wish I had fought harder for us before complacency became poison. So, before it's too late, recognize the subtle killers around you. The small irritations, the unspoken distances, the moments you choose distraction over presence. Those are the real weapons that destroy marriages. Silent, invisible, deadly. Here's something almost no one admits. Marriage dies when desire dies, and desire dies when attention dies. Men, this isn't about obsession or control. It's about presence, about seeing her as a woman, not just a roommate or co-parent. I killed my marriage by stopping noticing him, not his mistakes, not his flaws, but the man he was beneath all of that. I stopped appreciating the little things he did, the way he tried, the moments he gave without complaint. And when I stopped noticing, I stopped wanting. Desire isn't just physical, it's emotional, psychological, spiritual. It thrives on acknowledgement, respect, and mutual hunger for connection. When those vanish, the marriage rots quietly in the shadows. Do you know the feeling of watching someone fade in front of your eyes while you convince yourself everything is fine? That's exactly what I did. I told myself he would always be there, that love doesn't require effort, that comfort could replace passion. I was wrong, so devastatingly wrong. Men, don't let the quiet fade fool you. When she stops sharing her thoughts, her dreams, her fears, that's not just silence. That's an SOS, a red flag, a warning bell screaming, I am disconnecting. I ignored the signs, mistaking distance for moodiness, withdrawal for independence. I didn't realize I was pushing him toward emptiness. I killed my marriage by confusing honesty with harshness. I criticized instead of guided. I lectured instead of listened. I assumed I knew his heart better than he did. And here's the psychological truth most women never say out loud. A man's emotional survival in a marriage depends on feeling respected, trusted, and desired. Remove those three pillars, and everything collapses. I chipped away at them daily, thinking my frustration was justified, that he owed me patience for my mistakes. Men, this is your warning. The silent erosion is deadly. And here's the cruelest part. I loved him. I truly did. But love isn't enough when it's lazy, distracted, or dismissive. Passion dies not because hearts stop feeling, but because people stop choosing each other in meaningful, conscious ways. I failed to choose him. Every day, I let distraction, ego, resentment, and unspoken bitterness chip away at our foundation. And slowly, he stopped fighting too. Not because he didn't love me, but because there was nothing left to fight for. So listen carefully. Never confuse familiarity with security. Never assume love is unbreakable. Protect your connection as if your life depends on it, because it does. Let me tell you the part that breaks most people. I killed my marriage not with grand gestures, but with lies. Not the big, dramatic lies you hear about in movies. No, those are easy to spot. I killed it with tiny, almost invisible distortions. Little excuses, omitted truths, silent betrayals that seemed harmless in the moment. Men, listen closely. It's not the huge mistakes that usually end a marriage. It's the accumulation of small deceits, the quiet moments where honesty is traded for comfort, convenience, or ego. Each time I lied about my feelings, my time, my intentions, I chipped away at trust, the very foundation of love. And trust, once fractured, is nearly impossible to rebuild. I remember thinking, it's just this once. He'll never know. That phrase became my mantra. I justified my choices, dismissed my guilt, convinced myself love would forgive oversight. But love doesn't forgive indifference. Love doesn't forgive neglect. It forgives honesty, even if it hurts. I was blind to that. And the cruel twist? Men often think they are immune to this pattern. They think a few unspoken truths, a little emotional distance won't matter. But it does. It accumulates silently, invisibly, until the person who once trusted you completely begins to doubt the very foundation of your existence together. I killed my marriage by withholding intimacy, not just physical, but emotional. I stopped sharing my vulnerabilities, my fears, my dreams. I stopped asking about his. And when we stopped sharing, a chasm opened. Men, you have to understand this. A marriage is a daily negotiation of vulnerability. When you stop exposing your soul to each other, the walls go up and no one can scale them. I didn't just ignore my own responsibility. I actively built barriers between us. And once walls exist, they attract resentment, loneliness, and silence, the silent killers of love. I killed my marriage because I confused comfort with contentment. I assumed long-term security meant I could stop trying. Men, that is a fatal mistake. Security is not permission to stop fighting for each other. It is a reminder that the stakes are higher, that the heart in front of you is priceless and fragile. Every small lie, every unspoken thought, every withheld feeling added weight to the scale. Eventually, love itself couldn't hold the pressure. I wish I had recognized the danger earlier, that I had been brave enough to speak, to confront, to risk honesty over convenience. So here's the hard truth. Marriages die in whispers, not shouts. And if you want to protect yours, you must face the uncomfortable reality that your actions, even the tiniest ones, matter more than you realize. Here's a truth almost nobody admits. Resentment is quiet, but it's lethal. I killed my marriage by letting resentment fester like an untreated wound. Every small irritation, every moment of disappointment, every unspoken argument I carried in my heart became fuel for a fire I didn't even notice I was starting. Men, listen carefully. Resentment isn't just anger. It's the slow, invisible accumulation of unmet expectations, neglected feelings, and unaddressed frustrations. And once it grows roots, it changes the way you see your partner. I didn't even recognize him anymore, not because he changed, but because my perception was poisoned by everything I refused to face. I remember thinking, he should know what I need without me saying it. That thought, innocent in its surface-level logic, was the beginning of the end. Expecting someone to read your mind, to anticipate your needs perfectly, is not love. It's a setup for heartbreak. And when those expectations weren't met, I didn't communicate. I didn't ask. I didn't negotiate. I silently collected disappointment like trophies, letting them pile up between us until they became a barrier I couldn't see past. Men, this is crucial. Silent resentment is more dangerous than active conflict. Conflict can be resolved. Resentment festers. I killed my marriage by turning small arguments into emotional landmines. Every disagreement became proof that love was fragile, that connection was fragile. I punished him emotionally instead of communicating. I withdrew affection instead of addressing the root causes. And here's the hardest truth. He felt it. He responded with distance, not because he wanted to, but because the walls I built between us were suffocating him. Men, pay attention. When your partner withdraws, it's never random. It's a reflection of your own absence, your neglect, your emotional blindness. I also killed my marriage by forgetting the power of gratitude. I stopped acknowledging his efforts, stopped celebrating his victories, stopped valuing the little ways he tried to make our life together better. Instead, I focused on what I felt was missing, what I wanted more of, what he should be doing differently. Gratitude isn't a luxury. It's the glue that keeps love alive. Remove it, and resentment will fill its place. So, understand this. The death of a marriage rarely happens in a single dramatic act. It is the cumulative result of ignored emotions, unspoken truths, and unchecked resentment. If you want to save yours, start by noticing what you're tolerating silently, and deal with it before it becomes poison. Here's the part most people will never tell you. I killed my marriage by underestimating the power of attention. Men, this is not about lavish gifts or grand romantic gestures. It's about noticing the little things that matter more than you realize. I stopped seeing him as a person with desires, dreams, fears, and insecurities. I stopped asking about his day, stopped listening when he spoke, stopped being genuinely curious about his thoughts, and slowly, he stopped sharing. Because why would he? Why invest in someone who no longer invests in you? That's the invisible, cruel decay of a marriage. Attention withheld is love slowly withdrawn. I killed my marriage by confusing busyness with importance. Life gets hectic, jobs are demanding, and stress is inevitable. But I let those pressures become excuses. I assumed that as long as we coexisted, love was still alive. Men, listen. Coexistence is not love. It's just survival. True love demands focus, presence, and engagement every single day. Ignoring that doesn't just create distance. It creates silent resentment, confusion, and doubt. He stopped feeling wanted, valued, and understood, and that's when desire began to fade. I also destroyed my marriage by taking his loyalty for granted. I assumed he would always forgive my mistakes, overlook my coldness, and cover for my indifference. I didn't realize that loyalty isn't infinite. It can be strained, broken, or redirected elsewhere if neglected long enough. Men, you might think that your presence guarantees commitment, but it doesn't. Commitment is earned daily, nurtured through actions, attention, and respect. Ignore that, and what you once had can vanish without warning. The harshest truth? I killed the part of him that trusted me completely. I stopped being the person he could rely on for emotional safety. I stopped showing empathy, patience, and vulnerability. And when I withdrew those things, I left space for doubt, frustration, and loneliness. He may have stayed physically, but emotionally, he had already begun to retreat. Men, your emotional absence is louder than any argument, harsher than any fight, and more damaging than any betrayal. So here's the lesson, brutally clear. Love dies in the small, quiet betrayals, in moments of inattention, in years of silent neglect. Protect your marriage by noticing what matters, engaging daily, and never assuming that love is automatic. Because if you take it for granted, it will leave, one unnoticed day at a time. Now, here's the truth. Most people are too afraid to face. I killed my marriage by stopping my own growth. I became stagnant, comfortable, and predictable. Men, hear me clearly. Marriage is not a static contract. It's a living ecosystem. When one partner stops evolving, stops challenging themselves, stops striving for more, it affects everything. I stopped pursuing my dreams, stopped pushing myself emotionally and intellectually, and in doing so, I unintentionally forced him into a role he never signed up for, the caretaker of someone who no longer inspired him. I killed my marriage by letting complacency take over. I assumed that because we loved each other, we could stop growing. But love without growth is like water without movement. It stagnates, breeds toxicity, and eventually suffocates. Men, you must understand this. Your partner notices when your passion fades, when your curiosity disappears, when your ambitions shrink. I could see it in his eyes, the subtle disappointment that slowly turned into resignation. And instead of addressing it, I rationalized it, excused it, and let it erode the foundation of our connection. I also destroyed our intimacy by believing my past efforts were enough. I stopped exploring him, stopped discovering new dimensions of who he was, stopped being playful, spontaneous, and engaged. Desire is not a switch that stays on, it's a fire that needs fuel. I stopped adding fuel, and the fire slowly went out. Men, if you think long-term comfort is enough, think again. Intimacy dies when curiosity dies. The moment you stop wanting to see your partner fully, emotionally, physically, and mentally, the marriage begins its silent collapse. I killed my marriage by forgetting that love is a two-way mirror. It reflects what you put into it. I poured less, expected more, and resented the imbalance without understanding that the imbalance was my own creation. He gave, I withheld, he tried, I criticized. I didn't see the damage I was causing because I was too focused on my own frustrations, my own ego, my own perceived injustices. Men, notice this. A relationship mirrors your effort back at you. If you stop giving, you stop receiving. Finally, I killed my marriage by ignoring the urgency of now. I assumed we had endless tomorrows to fix things, to reconnect, to rekindle. But love doesn't wait. Time is ruthless. Every day you neglect your partner is a day closer to loss. Men, understand this. Growth, attention, curiosity, and effort are not optional. They are the lifeblood of lasting love. Neglect them, and you'll watch something precious slip away without realizing it until it's gone. Here's the final truth, the one that will either shock you or awaken you. I killed my marriage not because of him, not because of circumstance, but because I failed to recognize the responsibility of love. Men, love is not a feeling. It is a decision, a daily choice to see, honor, and protect the person standing beside you. I stopped making that choice. I stopped prioritizing him, stopped investing in our connection, and assumed that my presence alone was enough. And when I realized the damage, it was already too late. I killed my marriage by ignoring the little battles, thinking they were insignificant. I dismissed his frustrations, his desires, his emotions, believing they would resolve themselves or that he would forgive my apathy. But men, understand this. No one can tolerate perpetual neglect indefinitely. Every small, ignored feeling, every unnoticed gesture, every dismissed complaint is like adding weight to a scale. Eventually, the balance tips, and what once seemed stable collapses. I also killed it by underestimating communication. I assumed that love could survive with half-truths, skipped conversations, and emotional withdrawal. I avoided the hard talks, convinced that silence would protect us, but silence is poison. It allows misunderstandings to fester, resentments to grow, and walls to rise. I watched the man I loved retreat into quiet despair, and my attempts to reach him often came too late or felt hollow. Men, this is your warning. Never underestimate the power of honest, timely, and empathetic communication. It can save or destroy in equal measure. Most painfully, I killed our connection by forgetting why I loved him in the first place. I focused on imperfections, assumed he owed me attention, and let my expectations overshadow gratitude. Men, if you want your marriage to survive, constantly remember why you chose your partner. Celebrate them, notice them, honor them. Do not let the small irritations drown out the reasons your heart's connected. I wish I had understood this sooner. So here's my final lesson, raw and unfiltered. Love demands vigilance, attention, honesty, curiosity, growth, and daily choice. Ignore these, and even the strongest relationship can crumble. If you take this seriously, reflect on your own actions, your own neglect, and your own apathy, because recognizing the danger is the first step to stopping it. Now, I want you to think about this and answer honestly in the comments. If love is a bank account, and attention, effort, and gratitude are the deposits, how much have you invested lately? Comment your answer below, and if this hit home, like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who needs to hear this truth today.